Benjamin Arthur Ellis. From 1990 to 1994, my friend Trace and I owned and operated an all-ages nightclub in Portland, Oregon called the X-Ray Cafe. That is what this movie is about.
Hello lovers, I am Roger Music here, for you only. This is the place where the famed X-Ray Cafe was.
Can I come in and see you? 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 Can I come in and see you?
It had a sort of dreamy quality, and you never knew what was going to happen.
The way that it felt just to be there, like just to, I don't know, it was like exciting.
It was a home for the homeless, I guess. It was a mind for the mindless. Sometimes fake, sometimes real.
A place to do whatever you want.
It was a great place to go sit on pillows and eat tons of candy.
Kind of a loose collection of people all kind of projecting their desires on a piece of real estate in a specific point of time.
X-Ray was a fun, weird, sometimes dark place to grow up.
You know, you never knew what was going to happen.
People getting naked, setting themselves on fire, and puppet shows,
slumber parties, jalapeno eating, and arm wrestling, and
roaches, the maggots that flashing light.
All in this like little spray-painted black cardboard box with nails sticking out of it called the X-Ray.
Long live the X-Ray memories.
Like the corners of my mind.
That's hard to remember.
The fuzzy years.
Yeah.
I'll never forget the X-Ray. Back in the day, man.
I've been to the, I've got to sort of ramble on a little bit here because I can't describe the X-Ray without really describing Portland, the city of roses. They two are sort of intertwined, much as a good rose would be on a trellis.
Portland's a beautiful city. Standing on the Burnside Bridge or the Hawthorne Bridge or the Morrison Bridge in the evening and looking either upriver or downriver is kind of like Portland at its best in some ways. And each neighborhood that the bridge leads off into and from has got its own personality.
So Portland is a real art car community, and Portland's cool because it's small, and it's easy. For me, my purpose is to entertain people, so it's kind of got that small town thing, you know, people wave, there's the freak with the car, you know, and I drive around, I dress as a clown and stuff, and so it's fun for me.
I think one reason that the X-Ray really stood out as much as it did is that Portland is a real Mayberry RFD. This is a very straight, very conservative, very clean, very white town. The people who live here have liberal beliefs in terms of the environment or race relations or things like that, but ultimately they're they're pretty old-fashioned and real stick-in-the-muds.
From what I can see in Portland, Oregon, there's a lot of homeless people and a lot of people committing a lot of crimes, you know.
A documentary in Portland?
But I truly believe it's always had a tremendous foundation of quality artists, musician types, that's what we're talking about, music, based here in Portland, Oregon, or in the Northwest, but a lot around this area.
Yeah, I'm Pierre Willette, and I played in a lot of bands around Portland in the 60s and 70s. I did a stint with Paul Revere and the Raiders. I played with another popular regional band called Don the Good Times.
Well, I'm in Dead Moon right now. Before that, Western Front. Before that, the Rats, Zipper, King Bee. Then back to the Lollipop Shop and the Weeds. This is back in the 60s. So I'm turning 51 here in just a little bit. So yeah.
A lot of it came out of like kind of the blues and folk music thing from the coffee house days. Going all the way back to a place called the Cafe Espresso.
And that goes back to things like the Headless Horseman and the Folk Singer, the Crystal Ballroom, you know, late 60s, early 70s.
Late 70s, early 80s, clubs started opening up, like the Longaby, La Bamba, the Las Hurrah was around. There was quite a few more clubs and doing more of a variety of music.
I started doing punk shows in '78 and stopped doing them in about '82 after a couple of all-ages clubs that had got off the ground.
We would have to rent a new hall every show because we would never be allowed in the same hall twice.
We probably did more shows between Urban Noise and Clockwork Joe's in 1981 and 82 than any all-age venue up until 13th Precinct.
Focus was on doing local bands with the bands themselves acting as the promoter and production. So we did everything ourselves.
And so anyway, I used to go to the 13th Precinct, and I loved that place a lot.
I remember the 13th Precinct.
Tell them about it, because I don't.
Okay, every night the toilet was broken.
I really liked the atmosphere of it, and I liked the fun of it. You know, to go to a show, it was really something interesting to do, and it was a lot of fun. I thought the music was really bad.
It was just real basic, energy-oriented stuff, and it was great for everybody. And we were kind of all at the same spot. The Wipers were a little more pro. They knew what they were doing.
The Wipers.
Napalm Beach.
The Dharma Bombs, the Hell Cows. You listen to those bands, and it sounds like Portland to me. And it is a generational thing.
The Blue Gallery opened. That was kind of like the beginnings of the new Portland scene, like Youngblood. Calamity Jane was starting, Hazel, Pond, and Heat Miser, Cracker Bash.
The Blue Gallery was constantly getting fucked with by the fire marshal, you know, so we played there a lot.
86, 87, 88, it was not very many clubs left in Portland, Oregon. Maybe here, Key Largo and Satyricon, basically. Eli's on and off, and then comes Benjamin Arthur Ellis and Trez.
Hello, my name is Benjamin Arthur Ellis.
And my name is Trace.
Well, you want to go first or you want me to?
Are you ready?
Let's roll.
Okay, I'm Jane, I'm Trace's mom.
I'm Marcia Ellis, and this is my husband, Hugh, otherwise known as Arthur Hugh. We are the parents of Benjamin Arthur Ellis, the owner of the X-Ray Cafe.
Trace did not crawl. He did not toddle. He drug himself along the floor like a little paraplegic child, and then one day he got up and he ran away. I mean, he literally got up on his feet and ran.
He worried about many things because he was reading very early. He read newspaper reports, and I believe that the Vietnam War had a strong effect on him as a preschooler.
And they were a perfect match. Trace is the hey handshaker guy, and Ben was the guy who said, well, I think we ought to do it this way.
I met Trace at a Halloween party when we were 18 years old, as I recall.
18 or 19, yeah.
I believe it was 18. And
I think we were 19.
Could have been 19, but I think it was 18.
Because I moved out here on October of '84, and I didn't meet you till the following year.
All right.
So it was '85.
All right.
It was, I'm just telling you.
I believe you. And
so we were 19.
19 at a Halloween party, and
So Ben and Trace were in the Kurtz project. Well, Trace was. Ben was too, right?
Band that started out calling ourselves the worst band in Portland, and we half believed it, and I about 3/4 believed it a lot of the time, and worried about whether we were just taking up space on stage and annoying people.
They did, weird shows all over town.
Well, they had like Travis, who was like,
Can't hear.
Can't hear. He was
can't
their
hear.
drummer.
And it was my understanding that the project of the Kurtz project was to teach Travis how to drum, even though he's entirely tone deaf and had no rhythm whatsoever.
Hi, I'm Travis Kurtz, and I played drums in the Kurtz project.
And I asked him, how did you get to be such a huge band? Either Ben or Trace said, well, never turned down a show.
at one point, Marnie was working at a place called Zorba the Greek. She was a waitress at a Greek restaurant, working for a man named Alki, who was a Greek man. We do not know his last name.
A lady used to work for me. She used to play violin. Her name is Marnie. She asked me, the whole group can play Wednesday evenings, just one time a week. And I said, okay.
Alki said that, you know, nobody dances to you people, and, you know, if there's no dancing, you guys are fired, kind of thing. I mean, he was pissed about it.
Crystal showed up.
Came rolling in and took her shoes off and danced the entire time. And there was only like 4 people there, but Crystal Bullet was one of them, and she danced. And the thing about it is, like, we hadn't improved his business really, because there was still only about 4 people there, but there was dancing. And the Greeks love dancing.
They do.
We got fired, I think, from that, or else we quit. Marnie got fired, so that's why it was really kind of surprising. Later on, Ben and Trace somehow hooked up with Alki.
We ran into him on the street and chatted with him, and he said,
Like
hey,
Zeus Pizza, man.
He has a place called
Zeus
Zeus
Pizza.
Pizza down at 2nd and Burnside.
214 West Burnside.
And he's having a problem bringing business down there.
If I open for the young kids, like underground music, and I call Trace Ben, or Ben and Trace, and I told them my idea, they like it, and we name it UFO Cafe.
I first started showing up at the UFO basically the first week that it was open, or rather the first week that Ben and Trace were connected to it. Matthew and I used to busk downtown, and
I was right there before it was the X-Ray, when it was the UFO. Partly because it was a place to play, but also just because it was a place to be. And what few people were there were always entertaining.
It was a great fun stage, and I remember Crystal Bullet used to come and dance when we did shows. Fred would come and dance, and that was always a blast.
Hi, I'm Fred Nemo. I live in Oregon.
At the UFO, you could still drink, and it was an afternoon club, and they had just totally, like, not even left of center, but off the map music.
The UFO always said, yeah, damn right, you can play here, because we've never heard anything like this, and that's what we want.
It used to be a night drums night. Everybody played, hit something without music, and everybody's dancing. That was good, right?
The UFO was neat because it was right when Ben and I were the most hungry, and we were completely dumpster diving, and we did that for the X-ray too, but the UFO, we were just crazed. I mean, it was like, there's a chair on the street, and we'd grab it and bring it over, and there's, you know, let's bring in our, Ellis brought in like I don't think at this point he had a place to live. He was living in a closet somewhere doing something.
Ben used to live underneath my staircase.
We're putting on these shows and not getting paid. We're paying the bands. Ben and Trace and I weren't getting paid. So eventually I decided I'd charge $1 at the door. So I started being the door guy. I charged everybody $1. And I quickly became known as Mean Dave Queen because I wouldn't let any of these assholes in unless they had $1. I mean, it's Friday, Saturday night. You ain't got $1? What the fuck are you doing here? Okay?
One time we have a bad experience.
There used to be a haunted house, and we had no permits at all. We just had this lot. Another big radio interview. That was again on Kink or something. Francine Rafkin.
Which directly alerted the fire marshal to the fact that we...
Yeah, we're on the, like, drive home at 5, the scariest haunted house in all of Portland.
No shit, it was scary.
Because it was in an abandoned building with
that had been burnt out with a fire, and we had just open candles.
And it's the fire department shows up saying, well, I heard your, drive home at 5 interview, and I hope you folks have permits. And we're like, no, I'm probably not. Would you want to tour the place? And they're like, well, I'd kind of like to take a look through it. So I walked them through the whole deal. This is the place where the accordion clown will jump out at you. And then sometimes we just put people over that old rubble. And Steven Spirit reads tarot cards here. And the door to nowhere. And
the electric chair.
The whole time Lou Reed's Metal Machine music playing in the background. That was cool, man.
Do you believe in a ghost or spirit? You don't? Ask me if you like to know something about it. They exist. Where? They'll be next to you, next to you, next to you. You cannot see them because they live in different dimensions or different speed.
He's very superstitious.
After a while, Alki stopped paying his rent, and Trace talked to the owner of the building and found this out.
During the UFO, we really did realize this potential that Alki never had our vision at all.
They had a coup, maybe. I'm not sure. Coup de Cafe, maybe.
Ben and Trace take the place over. And they changed the name from UFO Cafe to X-Rays Cafe. It was successful.
I was reading through police reports one day when I came across one about a runaway. He ran away 'cause he burned his house down and he left his mother a note. Mom, I'm really sorry for what I did. I did the best I could to put it out and burn myself all up in the process. I hope you can forgive me, and I just hope that Dad'll take me after this. I'm really sorry, I love you, Sign Brian. I'm not telling you where I am, but I'll give you the phone number, 7210115. Just ask for Brian. 7210115. Just ask for Brian. 7210115. Just ask for Brian. 7210115.
All right, my name is John Beardsley. I'm the former landlord of X-Ray Cafe, which actually started off as the UFO Cafe. And it was started by two entrepreneurs named Trace Shannon and Ben Ellis. And those two boys didn't have a clue.
You know, they were over at this apartment that I lived at one time, and they said they were going to call it the Cafe Titicaca.
I also met the guy that supposedly they named it after, this guy named Ray.
I always thought it was kind of telling that the X-ray was physically as close to the geographical apex of the city as you could get, i.e. it was the closest building to the middle of the Burnside Bridge, which is where east meets west and south meets north in the river.
The area where the X-ray was has historically been a pretty rough area of Portland. You probably know the history of the name Skid Row.
Burnside used to be a Skid Row street. It was a chute, a mud chute that logs went down into the river in back in the early days of Portland. And then there was this huge whorehouse that had like 600 hookers at it. And a lot of them were Inuit women that used to groom their hair with urine and fish oil.
The corner where the X-ray was, before it was there, was the center of a lot of drug dealing. After dark, it was not very safe to be walking by there. Well, there's a principle of city planning, city design, urban design, that good activity drives out bad activity.
We definitely cleaned up the block because people just didn't know what to think. We'd wear clown wigs.
We just started being as annoying as possible, and they left.
I remember Ben coming outside with a megaphone and saying, please occupy one side of the sidewalk or the other for your loitering needs. Thank you, the management.
Like the cops really liked us. We were really fortunate that we had this guy, Officer Joyce. He was cool and was just like a beat cop that he came by and saw what we were up to, and and I think somewhere down the line it trickled down that we were okay,
Because because I was only like 15 or 16 at the time, and so it was a place where I could go. And I could go and see a rock show, because I couldn't get into bars yet. I was like, yeah, so that's what rock and roll is, woohoo!
Because X-Ray was all about rock and roll.
It was all about something. It was
rock for the kids.
All ages could go there. You'd have like little kids, and people that were like oldsters in their 50s and 60s coming in and hanging out.
Yeah, my parents came down.
Yeah, his parents came and watched the show.
Your
Yeah,
kids came.
that was great.
I tend to prefer quieter places, but I enjoyed the atmosphere for short periods.
It was something that I enjoyed, he enjoyed, Ben enjoyed, all of their friends and all of my friends enjoyed.
It had a spontaneous feel, and I think the decor was very, in line with that.
Lots of decoupage and classic velvet art.
The largest collection of black velvet paintings I had ever seen in my life.
The X-ray, they had a dentist chair there. They had this old kind of a wheelchair that people could sit down on.
And one of those great big gynecological examination chairs, complete with the stirrups to put your feet up and everything.
And they have these little risers at the back. That was pretty cool.
So there was this one guy, Captain Dan, and he was pretty cool because he knew how to make pretty much anything at all.
Electronics, construction.
He built this big chair that you could rotate around, and it looked like a Star Wars gun port. and it shot this red laser.
You could shoot it at the disco ball. You could shoot it into mirrors,
into Alexis,
into different things, into across the street. You
It was
could
pretty
blind
advanced.
people over in the Greek
And it was
restaurant
the
across the
X-ray
street.
Cafe, and he also made that weird
Heinous the
X-ray.
Clown.
And he was on a like ball bearing kind of thing. So the faster he got, the higher he got. And if he got high enough, he would hit like these little stuffed animals that were hanging from the ceiling. And every time that he hit one of these stuffed animals, there would just be the most inane, insane laughter. Just
Yeah, I just remember the picture of the woman from Three's Company. What's her name? Janet James.
No, Joyce DeWitt.
Joyce DeWitt.
Joyce, do it.
No. Well, you understand. Like, we had all these things. We're like, oh my God, because it was like our life when we were 14, you know.
One of the problems with, you know, being young and vulnerable and in a club full of other, you know, cool, young, beautiful people is you get a lot of crushes and you get your heart broken a lot. But the Frog really never let me down, and the Frog was always there to hold me and console me.
The X-ray was probably, to most people, their home away from home. Like a second family.
It was right downtown, you know, and so it was really easy for people to get to. Number one, it was really easy for people to get to because there was buses all over the place, you know, and like people could take the bus down, and it would be just really easy for anybody to get to because they could take the bus down or.
I love the pace of public transportation. I'm late early. Everywhere I go, the people I meet are always sweet, and I'm always glad to share a seat. And I love to take it everywhere I go.
Every Tuesday night the Tennesseans played, so I would leave my job, my suburban job at Coffee People, and put on all my cool, tight black clothes and go hang downtown.
But I wouldn't trade it for a Cadillac, 'cause when I'm right, I can take a nap, 'cause I newspaper by my side.
They were like, where are you playing? The X? What? Yeah. And you had to explain it to them. Well, it's not really a nightclub.
It's called X-Ray Cafe,
if you would just
but it's
go
not a
there.
cafe.
Right.
Straight country western between Cracker Bash and punk rock. Yeah, all right. Yeah, that's gonna go far.
Where's my cowboy hat?
You had such diverse people playing back to back, and yet it was like, oh, well, naturally that band follows that guy.
God's Favorite Pussy, also known as GFP, or Girls for Peace, as I was telling my parents.
Our very first show was at the X-Ray, because of course Ben and Trace were the only ones that would probably book a band called God's Favorite Pussy.
Some of the old songs just
don't sound the same on any other instrument. It's possibilities, possibilities. Consider all the possibilities.
Anything can happen there.
Frankly, it scared me a little bit, you know.
You know, a lot of bands came out of that joint. My band, and everyone's heard of my band.
Vinny's band was big.
Big Daddy Meets Sky.
Yeah.
We acted very wacky, and the kids ate it up because it was the X-ray, you know.
We did this sort of post-industrial, tribal soundscaping, a lot of banging on metal objects, found objects. We had an electrified shopping cart, which was sort of our hook.
I think I played at the X-Ray in various projects like Drip and Ape Grave and Sufi Mind Game.
Dead Moon, Cracker Bash, The Tennesseans, Pond, The Innuendos, Misread Flowers, Francis Farmer Gals,
Motor Goat, Joy Buzzer, Sloth, Jim Boyer, Digby, Junket, Daniel Menchie, Bug Skull, Last Pariahs, Crayon, 30-06, Alpha Jerks, Surf Maggots. Those are the bands Hazel played at the X-Ray with.
X-Ray Cafe was the cat's potato. It was everybody played there. Every big band played there.
Yeah, we played a show with Green Day there, I remember, in like '91 or something.
Well, and just like Everclear opened for us at the X-Ray.
That's right.
I still get a kick out of it.
You can hear it right here. We're trying to electrocute Everclear. Right on the X-Ray stage. See, the X-Ray stage wasn't grounded, so you could end up, especially with an old guitar and old vintage amps. You hear the sound. That's somebody being electrocuted.
I think we had some real, some power problems there, like we usually have in lots of places. But it was a good gig. I remember it being a good gig, and we just played anyway, and everybody
was crazy. There was like 2 stabbings and a shooting outside.
Pretty much par for the course there at the X-Ray, I guess. But it seemed really great. There was always people there. And I really liked the location.
It was like walking into a vortex or something, which was weird because, which was doubly weird because that part of Portland was like a vortex already. So it's like you went from the real world to this alternate world and then walked into yet another world that was an alternate from that world.
And I think maybe that's because like X-Ray had a I don't know, a levity. It had some sort of, artistic spirit behind the chaos.
Seems like everybody played there. Pretty popular spot.
I was living in San Francisco, and a guy told me I could play anytime I wanted to in Portland at the X-Ray Cafe.
The X-Ray was always the place that we drove 13 hours straight to get to, and once you got there, it always felt like you could just relax.
You could go ahead and sleep on the floor, maybe if you didn't have anywhere to go, and even if it meant getting locked in or something like that until the next morning.
We weren't just nationwide, we were worldwide. We had bands from Japan that played there, we had bands from Europe, many bands from Europe, Germany.
Kind of reminded me of my own teens back home when I was trying to do rock and roll with my friends, oppressed by the communist government.
We are very fortunate people here in America in the 20th century.
We have telephones.
We have telephones. We have technology.
Потому что я говорю очень хорошо по-русски. Люди сказали, меня зовут Will, Larry the Mad Russian.
I did Spanish classes there so that people could learn Spanish, but what ended up happening a lot was that Spanish-speaking homeless people would come in and learn English from me too, which was great.
They used to do like an educational thing on Wednesday nights. And one Wednesday I came down and did a talk on languages. Somebody said she wished she could have brought her daughter down because it was really educational. So, you know, that meant a lot to me that somebody said that.
Go to the library, check out a book, open up the cover and take a good look.
I was Mr. Fix-It on Wednesday nights. I had the science fixins, and I did a little science experiment and a little lesson to everybody on Wednesday nights right after Ask Len and Primal Scream Therapy and Meditation with Elvis, and there were science fixins.
You can ask Len anything for a quarter, and he would give you a 25-cent answer every time.
That was family night. Ask Len was brilliant.
Wednesdays were
Really
great.
funny.
How you doing there, kid?
Pretty good, old man. What's up?
Yeah, we had some great nights with the Gone Orchestra with just 3 people, or 4 people, and we just went up and did our orchestral thing.
We helped make the curtain at the sewing circle.
Mm-hmm. There was a sewing circle, a curtain made out of old clothes sewn together.
They had the curtain that was made out of pants and shirts all sewn together. It looked like a Little Rascals episode.
I would settle for a middle-aged woman, 284 pounds.
The X-Ray was a breeding ground for the next generation of bands. And I thought also it's the breeding ground for the next generation of sound engineers as well. The first thing we want to do is turn the system on.
Hey, check 1, 2. The signal starts the microphone and it goes into that snake there. The snakes have numbers. They correspond to the channel numbers on this board, assuming that somebody didn't unplug them and reconnect them in the wrong order.
All right, to remember what we're doing here, your microphone is number 4.
Check 1, 2. Hello, test 1, 2.
Hey, you're off to a good start here, okay?
My name is Saila. I do sound for a living, hence the microphone stand in my house.
How'd that start?
That started at the X-Ray Cafe. I ran the House of Snacks.
Saila's backing us up on grub over in the House of Snacks, so please feel free to visit her. Score a case of it's a buck. Hey, you got a buck.
I went to the shows, but I was more in there for like day-to-day rituals, you know, like.
Put your left arm in, put your left arm out, put your left arm in and shake it all around. You do the hokey pokey and you turn yourself around. That's the hokey pokey.
I went there all the time, probably like 3 times a week.
That was just what I did.
Like, it would be much better to have a cult following than a pop following because you have staying power, and that's like what the X-Ray was like.
Trey and Ben used to have this standing offer. If you get an X-Ray Cafe tattoo, you're in for life as far as the cover goes. You don't pay a cover.
Can't quite see it. X-Ray Cafe Poet.
It was sort of the easy, quick way to get into the club for free all the time, you know what I mean?
You could have like a bum leg and super thick Coke bottle glasses and be covered in pimples. But if you could like get a cheap suit at the bins and come down there and like try to strut your stuff, you could be totally a star.
Yeah. Is this thing on? Okay.
They got that X-ray training, you know, and whatever the hell that was, but it, you know, just dealing with street issues and dealing with bands and dealing with people in general.
You know what? You get all fuck off because you don't know what hurt is. It hurts.
Yes, yes.
Oh, no.
Yes, yes. Yes, yes. What? All right, get off the stage, please.
So if you want to talk to me, if you want me to listen, then we'll do it outside, okay? Do you care? Okay? I do care. Okay.
I think we really did a good thing. I think we set out a whole group of folks that learned how to be funny and wise.
I think you're really cool, dude, but don't unplug my equipment.
We started doing this thing where after the bands got done playing about midnight, I'd start this show that went from 1 to 4 a.m. And I wouldn't allow people to play music at my show. You could only read poetry and tell your own pitiful story.
And some of these nights were just absolutely amazing, and you never knew who was going to walk in off the street and give a chunk of their life.
Myself, so stupid, man.
Yeah, he would come in and everyone would make a beeline for the snack shop because he would buy a tomato juice. And then he would pay with like a 20 or a 50 or whatever, and you got to keep the change, whoever sold that.
But he got up on stage and tell their story. He would like kissing and licking their feet, and then then he got up there himself and pulled out his penis and tried to light it with a big lighter. We had to stop him, of course. I took the light away from him.
I don't know how many of you have seen Ernest Spankin' show, but that started at my show, at my after hours. Ernest did his first spankings there, and you know, the spanking was for redemption, you know.
I believe in the miracle of spanking. You can believe it too, look at that heel! We offer 4 wax on your bare bottom for $1. That's only $1. It's not a payment for services rendered. It's a token of your total love and submission.
I'm gonna look for that footage where he wore the loincloth made of flank steak.
If you had some sin, you had some guilt, you had to get up there, you get 4 swats for $1. I think it was a pretty good deal.
Remember, if you don't have wealth, the next day your next spending is half price.
I believe that something really important was happening. Something important like Dada or Bauhaus or Warhol's Factory. But the X-Ray really gave life to bare-bottom spanking for salvation. I mean, we came together. It was our church.
And the best thing about the X-Ray was meeting other people who were really young and going and getting girls and getting married at the Church of Elvis, which was right around the corner.
Church of Elvis, remember that?
Yeah, I remember the Church of Elvis, of course.
You know, I got people that would come over or just come around the block from the X-Ray and, you know, stop by the Church of Elvis.
What do you do for a living?
I'm Elvis.
version of Elvis, but people around here know him. He's a local character. Doesn't look a thing like Elvis, but he's more Elvis than Elvis ever could have thought of being.
He was like this cool, crazy, cuckoo, kajooky cat, you know.
At first I got along with Elvis, and then like one time I remember I went in there and he just totally grabbed my boob. Like,
This doll, the girl.
if he can.
He was always respectful. That was my experience with him anyway.
Pretty much, yeah, that's what I really enjoyed, you know. You could be yourself and not be given all kinds of lip for doing it, you know.
Cherokee people, Cherokee's right. So proud to live, so proud to die.
I'm really nervous, but I was told that the Monday night crowd is really nice and sensitive. Claps a lot.
Little Sean running around, squirting everyone with squirt guns.
I used to go there just to watch him because he was such a freak.
But at the X-ray, it just kind of made sense, you know? It was like, hey, you know, you're home now. Hey, what's up,
And I remember
Sean?
Ernest one night, we had the alien landing, and young Sean played the alien.
Well, I remember one time somebody came up and was interested in our teeth. You remember that?
I met your father. Boy, does he recall.
He wasn't harmful. He was
Helpful John. Helpful John.
Ladies and gentlemen, the wise and wonderful John Friend.
You know an old lady who swallowed a spider. It wriggled and jiggled and jingled. Let's do something to beat.
We kept rolls of scotch tape around just for John.
I didn't use any tape at the X-ray. Oh! Duct tape.
George, it's a
Front
film, and
of
like all
the
this
building would be just covered
shit,
with
and every
John's
day,
shit.
and he's
every day.
painting he's painting the outside of the building. I mean,
Painting
he would do something, he would
things,
start doing the fire
moving
escape.
things.
Tracy, can I clean the bathroom for you?
Cleaning things.
And he'd show up with Chinese food for everybody, you know, from yesterday.
Helpful John was generous and kind when I had nothing. Thank you, John. He is as close to a father as I've ever had, and that may sound bizarre because he's way out there.
Yeah, I thought it was kind of cool the way they kind of adopted people.
Because you get a sense of community when you play at the X-ray.
It was really small and intimate and comfortable.
There would be these sleepovers. I don't know if anyone's talked about the Rose Parade sleepovers.
Trey says, Vince, the Rose Parade goes by here every year. And people see this nationally, and we're going to get a lot of exposure.
Even the most scummy parts of town, people are camped out there for a week trying to get the good parade spots.
Most of the people that are camped out in front aren't in the X-ray contingent.
I went down and watched Rose Festival parades after X-ray slumber parties and had old grandmas come up to me and say, oh, your son is so nice and everybody is so nice here and we just love it and we want to come back every year. I mean, geez Louise.
The X-ray contingent are the people that are playing like the Cantina Band theme from Star Wars of the PA and dancing around like robots out in front. But then most of the people are just like regular like suburban kids that have come in to see the parade and are paying $0.25 to use the bathroom.
I remember thinking the first time we were there, there was a lot of retarded people there.
Well, the X-ray was
in operation, I was working for social services, the developmental disabilities programs, and with adults with developmental disabilities. And I ran into many people in the social services who had strong things to say about how the X-ray was meeting needs for kids with mental illness and kids who were not accepted by in any other communities.
My name's Kathy Oliver, and I'm the director of Outside In. And we started a needle exchange program in November of 1989, and it was one of the first in the United States. And it was very controversial when we started it. So we decided the most logical place to open a satellite site would be Old Town. And we first approached a couple of social service agencies in Old Town and asked if we could lease space from them, and the response was no. We then approached a couple of real estate agents and asked if they would help us find space, and they also said no, that they were not interested in our business. One person just laughed and hung up. So we got pretty discouraged. And then one day we got a call from Ben and Trace. On February 18th, 1992, we opened a second needle exchange site at the X-Ray Cafe. And they only charged us $40 a month for rent, which was wonderful.
The X-ray was just a catalyst, because I don't think things like the Ernest Truly Spanking Salvation Show really would have happened without the X-ray there to be a springboard for it.
And Big Daddy Meat Straw definitely would have never done crap if it wasn't for the X-ray. That was.
And I think the big proof of it too is the X-ray Roadshows.
Whenever we went on the road, it was like with the huge entourage of musicians and artists and amateur stuntmen.
I mean, it really was the circus coming to town, and it felt good to be part of the circus instead of watching the circus, you know?
It is time to relax your mind and your spirit. It is time to let your soul take control and your heart take control. What is there to be positive about? What is there to be glad about? Well, one thing is being glad you got a friend, being glad you got a loved one, being glad you got...
Looks like you! I'll never dance another. That's all very well. That's all very well. Yeah, well, that's all very well.
And then we took an X-ray Roadshow to Eugene. Eugene.
Once again, Do Bad Things, Francis Farmer Gal, Ernest Truly's Bare Bottom Spanking, Kurt's Project, Sean Krogan. If there's a problem, report to Trace or myself, and we'll work it out as best we can.
I'm afraid I got a spot of bad news.
What?
Zig got arrested.
You're kidding.
No.
For what?
Ernest Truly, the ritual is you have to steal the surprise meat.
The mystery meat.
The mystery meat for the meat spanking.
Yeah.
And they'd do a salmon or baby back ribs or something.
I liberated a hog's head from the Red Apple market. And
we were going to spank somebody with it.
I had been drinking a little bit.
Zed did get arrested this evening for stealing a pig's head.
Guys,
So, we're all going to be walking on eggshells.
I did bring out of the jukebox, and I can go over to the box to go prove it, a 45 of the Hokey Pokey. And, but they don't have a record player here at the Wow Hall.
Vicky was dressed up as the girl from Hot Dog on a Stick. She had one of those uniforms, and she was force-feeding whoever was getting spanked
Corn dogs.
corn dogs.
Jesus. That's sexy. But usually it seemed like the disasters that would happen tended to involve me. What can I say? I like to have a good time.
The dark side of the X-ray, and I think people have covered it up for too long, and I think people have to talk about it, get it out in the open. I think we finally have to explore this, and that was that the bathroom had like a curtain on it.
Just like small and dirty, basically. Like it was just dirty. That's what I remember, and having a lot of stuff around and just like always picking things up and hoping that a big old roach wouldn't come out and stuff.
It was a place for everyone, you know. It's roach friendly.
And then the health inspector comes and no one's opened the refrigerator. She's the first one to open the refrigerator and it's completely filled with maggots.
I had created a piece of music based on Joseph Campbell's Hero with 1,000 Faces, the hero's journey. When it was time to go to the underground, we could literally take the audience and you were underground, because the X-ray was built right over Old Town. You know, you get down into the basement down there and you're going back to the origins of Portland.
The bowels of the basement. The X-Ray Cafe. This looks up to code. Sure.
And then I had to build a stairway. That was the first big project. That's what got me into it. And I remember dragging the wood across Burnside, big 2x12 by 16s, and dragging it into the basement. And it was a hard job. Just fixing everything. They had me fix everything all the time, and that was a lot of work.
The way I actually came to work there was that I was living at home and I had a lot of free time, wanted something to do. I had looked through the phone book for social organizations to volunteer at, and the X-ray was listed.
Iona and I come that first day, we help him carry soda pop, then we go next door to the annex where Ben's trying to open a secondhand clothing shop, for donations, to keep the place running. And he goes, "Hey, you guys can look through these clothes. You look like clothes ladies."
Yeah, we tried to take over the kitchen for a while, and then there was some guy there who had dubbed himself the live-in caretaker or something.
In upstate New York, a man worked for me. He had several children, including a hydrocephalic child.
How about, this is horse piss. Horse piss, I say, in upstate New York.
I just remember he was creepy. He was very creepy, and so that ended shortly. But it did give me a taste for having my own restaurant.
Every janitor was so weird, and yet the next guy was just more far out.
Ladies and gentlemen, Storm and Norman, a janitor of ours.
Oh, I remember that. Yeah, totally.
He worked for $5 a day.
Yep.
His rap sheet is taller than he is.
It's a true story.
Well, the thing was, Trace and Ben were kind of sketchy, to me at least. You didn't know if they were ultra cool hipsters or just gay.
Ben and Trace were just fucking dicks.
And Mr. C's first gig was at the X-Ray. We were going to play there a lot longer and a lot more, except Ben told us that we didn't rock hard enough.
We were jam-packed with bands calling me, and I would say, well, what do you sound like? And they'd say, we're alternative. It's like, that doesn't explain anything to me. Alternative to what? Call me when you get an accordion in the band. Hang up.
Everybody's got their niche, but I remember seeing this band called Crash Worship. I wasn't there, I was standing outside.
I remember walking up to the club as the band was getting ready to start and seeing Ben and Trace both walking away, saying, "We'll come back tomorrow." And I asked, "So why are you guys leaving? Just where these guys are playing?" The answer was basically, "We don't want to see what's going to happen to our club."
So there was just drumming and smoke and water, blood, fire. Forget about it.
Someone told me that they were drinking blood.
Curtains of the stage started to catch on fire, and I don't know how he did this. To this day, I think that Tom Johnson telekinetically transported himself from the back of the room to the front of the room with the fire extinguisher.
Tom did a great job.
I was at this X-ray show, and there's this girl, and she had long hair, and she was wearing this crazy dress and these cowboy boots, and she just started dancing like I've never seen anyone dance before.
Crystal Bullet was just this amazing, wild
Spirit.
bird. Wild, yeah, she
Yeah.
was just so real. But her whole existence was about, performance when it was like feeling.
I saw her put 300-pound angry punk rock boys on their ass like 100 times. She was just a monster.
She was single-minded about dancing. She was single-minded about being a good friend. I think one of the reasons she died, and especially the primary conscious reason she died, was to call attention to a friend of hers who was a public hero who was dismissed from the public consciousness. He was into seeking out, finding, and exposing and fighting American Nazis. He was captured by 2 of his enemy soldiers, and she could have rescued him. Or in retrospect, she certainly felt she could have. It was an hour later they killed Bob. She wanted to help people remember Bob. Oh.
Crystal killed herself, set herself on fire in a motel room.
I grew up in a tiny town, Gold Hill, Oregon, population 600, and the closest town of any size at all was Medford, which is a little place with nothing to do.
Barreling down the boulevard, looking for the heart of Saturday night.
Yeah, we hung out in coffee shops and we hung out at Dairy Queens, just sitting in parked cars, just hanging out, 56 Chevrolets, sitting in the back, trying to figure out a way to get a case of beer.
I was in Arkansas. We always hung out. All the churches had little places that bands could play in the basement. And that's where I learned how to play guitar, was in the basement of the Methodist church.
I was at the gay dance club.
We had hangouts. We had district chorale. Totally unlike X-ray. I mean,
I don't think there's another X-ray, but
definitely that.
I think there's always, through time, everybody has some place to hang out.
We would just go out to the river and get stoned or something. There was nowhere to go.
I used to mug pimps in Albuquerque, New Mexico.
Looking for the heart of Saturday night.
And face it, most parents are working parents, and Donna Reed just isn't around anymore.
Right.
So who teaches them manners? I mean, society is different. Manners are different.
Having a place where they can go and experiment and not get crushed by the critics, to me, is crucial.
I write novelizations for a living. A lot of them very actiony, sci-fi, people blowing up aliens, people shooting zombies, type of exploding heads and blood and guts, and stuff that I love. But my audience is 12-year-old boys, basically. That's who I get my little fan letters from, which is really neat. And recently, after the Columbine high school shooting, I got a call from my editor, who said that he had come up with a statement to release to the press, just in case it turned out that one of the one of the shooters had read any of the books that I'd written. And so I think I can see how some of the bad things that happened at the X-ray, I can see how Ben or Trace might feel like they played a hand in that. And it's real easy to say to somebody else, no, it's not your fault at all. But I know how I felt when I got that call from my editor.
I don't think the X-ray did anything wrong. In fact, they're heroes. There should be more places like that. There shouldn't be impediments to anyone, not just young people, wanting to reach out into a community and do something and not be driven down by the rules and the mystery and the tedium of trying to figure out fire codes and housing codes and licensing.
Probably the most time-consuming thing I did was, of course, is Trace's treasurer and his mayoral campaign.
Trace's mayoral campaign. Now that was a lot of fun.
How you doing? You doing all right? You know I'm running for mayor. Good. My name's Trace. Good. Trace Shannon, yeah. Hi. How you doing, buddy? I'm well. How are you doing? Doing okay? All right. What's your name? Debbie. Trace. Denny's wife. Oh, really? Hi, Debbie and Denny. That's cool. My name's Trace. I'm running for mayor, you know. Are you? Yes. Common courtesy is what a thing that I've been really talking about a lot.
Long ways.
It certainly does, and it sounds kind of corny as the thing because I know it doesn't exactly. Yeah. Definitely, you would probably want a mayor who is a good people person. You would imagine. Boy, this is.
Bye.
Bye.
You are so popular.
Well, I certainly hope so.
You're definitely gonna get the popular vote.
Well, that's what I mean. I got to make sure that I get that.
The candidate would be forced to sit at the end of the table, surrounded by these people, without any advisors or helpers or mediators or filters or nothing. And of course, Trace came in. I think he came in with his dog and a bullwhip. And of course, he surprisingly did not get the endorsement from Willamette Week. But it gave them something to talk about for a really long time.
Where are you guys from? You guys from Washington? Oh, really? So you guys can't vote for me at all, but that's okay.
What was your platform again?
My shoes. I had lots of stuff. I mean, there was a beautiful town, you need a beautiful mayor, and toga stick, and read poetry at these things, and had Secret Service guys. I mean, I had a good time with it. And the thing about it was serious.
He promised I could be police chief if he was mayor.
Well, they knew I knew some math, and I was something of a political junkie anyway, so it was a good experience. Definitely found out I'm not cut out to be a bookkeeper.
About the only campaign contribution that I've received, I've lost. There you go.
I did vote for Trace for mayor. I didn't know him very well at that point.
I am your leader. Take me there. Everybody help me out here. We can do it! Make Trace mayor! We can do it! Make Trace mayor! We can do it! Make Trace your mayor! Yeah!
We didn't have a snowball's chance in hell, but we were going to have fun while we did it.
I totally thought I would win. I registered over 3,000 people to vote, and for I had $200 raised the entire time plus a fax machine. So actually I got more votes per my money than Barrett and Earl did.
It was a lot of fodder. It was always easy to write about something.
They were good pieces, and almost more important to my publishing at that time is they were free pieces. Is that these people just really wanted to write about the X-ray, and they wrote well, and I didn't have to pay them, and they came with pictures.
Basically, X-ray made the news.
Good evening. Portland police clashed with hundreds of teenagers in downtown Portland tonight, and it got so bad they closed down Burnside.
This all began during a national conference of a group police call Anarchists. The trouble really began earlier tonight during a punk concert inside the X-Ray Cafe.
There was a punk rock show at the X-Ray, and there were a lot of people there. And out of the blue, as far as I could tell, at least 100 Portland police officers showed up, full riot gear, blocked off Burnside, and started this kind of standoff thing, which completely puzzled me.
The anarchists saw this and came outside to see what was going on, and really they would want nothing more than a confrontation. There couldn't have been anything better the police could have done for them.
When there were kids going into the bathroom or the coat check room and getting their t-shirts wet underneath the sink and wrapping them around their head and talking about tear gas, other stuff like that.
And all evidence is that they are going to be the victims in this situation because the police won't say what they want, they won't say what was done, and they won't say what they're going to do about it.
What happened where they were a group of anarchists who were traveling to Vancouver, BC for an event I believe called Frenzy, and a small group was coming through Portland. Unknown to these people, their ranks were infiltrated by confidential, reliable informants working for the Portland Police Bureau who thought that they wanted to cause trouble here in Portland. They probably did, but I don't believe they wanted to cause trouble at the X-Ray Cafe.
Later, it came out that the anarchists had circulated flyers that said things like bacon sandwich and made sorts of cop jokes and stuff.
At some point, Ben plays the hokey pokey over the PA that broadcasts onto the street. And I'm like, yeah, this is great. This would be a good thing. It's like the more that we can make it kind of comedic, the more that we can just like diffuse the situation.
Dozens of teens taunted police as they gathered outside the popular alternative nightclub.
But it doesn't work. None of that works.
Don't get me wrong, those out-of-towners were all riled up.
The two sides watched each other for a time, then the kids took off in an informal parade uptown. As they went, they broke at least 2 windows on storefronts.
What do I remember about the riot? A bunch of the stupidest middle-class fucknuts I've ever seen in my whole life, taunting a bunch of guys with guns and clubs. And if I had a gun and a club, I'd have beat some of those hippie motherfuckers myself.
And officers declared a Code Zero, calling in all available police and arresting people for a number of infractions.
And they attacked somebody for just yelling at the cops. The guy was yelling at the cops. They went and ran, threw him down on the ground, cuffed him, took him away.
I was telling my mother about it, how blah, 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 and the outrage, and nobody did anything. And she just looked at me and said, I see, so middle-class white American kid gets his education.
It had nothing to do with the X-Ray. The X-Ray was the conduit for the anger on both sides, and that was all.
And we're business, that's what we did, is book punk rock bands on Sunday and Saturday afternoons,
But the X-Ray from then on became like kind of a pariah. It was front page news, and everybody referred to it as the X-Ray riot.
Parents started being unhappy with the idea of their kids going to the X-Ray.
In the end, it kind of, was one of the things that helped to like cut the money off in the last year.
It was never about the money, but as time went on, we owed all these tremendous bills to everybody. And it got harder and harder to just pay the phone bill.
There were many fundraisers. It seemed like perpetual fundraising was going on.
Ben and Trace were wacky, all chained up together all the time, literally and figuratively. The big Labor Day telethon, we handcuffed ourselves together for 72 straight hours. We had acts booked for 72 hours, and we kind of pulled this crazy we need money deal, and we made a goal of $5,000.
When I did the show, it was like during the day. It was just me and the drummer. I was playing guitar. It was like a 3-day festival. It was pretty much dead, really.
Vince needs to go to the bathroom during Frankie Machine and the Stiffs. However, we will not let him unless somebody brings us $1.
That's right. We need $1 for Vince to go to the bathroom.
Doesn't look good, Vince.
It looks like you're in trouble, pal.
$1. Your doorman's gonna wet himself.
Oh, won't that be embarrassing?
We got 46 bucks. There you are. Okay.
We need 47, Vince.
I'm actually pretty sure as I am of anything, which is never 100%, that we played our first show at X-Ray.
It's a mountain made of gold, but after all I came to see that I did not need a gold mountain.
I think that was the one where Ben and Trace were chained together with a ball and chain, and they had to get a certain amount of money or else they would never unlock themselves.
Evidently Unfortunately, if we don't reach $2,000, Trace has to start smoking. So it's really important that we reach $2,000.
Remember what I saw with you by my side.
So why don't you just come inside and see Rebecca? I mean, what the heck? Cough up a buck or something, we'll accept it. Your mom's cooking dinner? Oh, what, you can spare a buck for what, 20 minutes? It'll be late. You can microwave one.
You know, we've been up a long time. I'm not sure if this is real.
We've been handcuffed for what, for 29 hours now, but we were up a good 4 hours before that, so.
You know, people are looking weird in the crowd too. Look at that weird guy holding the frog.
Yeah, he's really distorted looking.
Insane.
Perception problems.
I don't know. Jesus. I don't know what that is.
I'll sell the underpants I'm wearing for $10 right now.
$10 right now for Ben's underpants.
If I were all you, I would demand your money back. We will all have to go if we want to reappear in the rhythm of the ritual. It's the wheel of fools spinning over my bed.
Got some melon and some bacon and some chocolate milk.
Why did you creep up? And Ben and Trace handcuffed themselves together, and I spent about 67 of the 72 hours at the X-ray, and they came out of the bathroom and they were wearing different clothes. So I know that they took those handcuffs off and changed their clothes.
We were handcuffed together, but we changed all the time, and we would be able to take our coats off inside out and bring them.
It was a very complicated process.
Real family fare.
It is family entertainment.
And we have another call, and we'll see what's up here on KKY. Sure. Hello.
If people like what we're doing here and want to keep doing it, I mean, it'll stay open.
214 West Burnside, right at 2nd and Burnside, right in Old Town. And it's on till tonight, and there is a phone number here, isn't there?
721-0115.
In fact, you'll be able to get through as soon as we're done with this show, because at the moment, this is the phone.
Tell them about this one, Vince.
This is Ernest's Rubber Alligator. It's made in Hong Kong. It's an Imperial, a name you look for in rubber reptile replica.
I promised Ben and Trace that I would make them $25 tonight with 25 combined faith donations. If we do not make the projected total, I'm gonna hack my left arm off with a rusty hatchet and use it for the surprise meat spanking.
This is documented, right? The first X-ray benefit that we did, they had an auction, and everybody was supposed to bring something to auction off.
This is one big auction package deal.
It's a test pressing, autograph test pressing, plus the first t-shirt.
First Hazel t-shirt ever printed.
And Freddie's getting his out there too. Should we start this? We got $5 right over here. Do we hear $5.50? $5.50 right here. Do we have $6? $6 in the red.
$6.
$6.50? $20.
Get
$20. Do we hear
21?
$21.50?
You know, we figured $20 or whatever, and the bids kept getting higher and higher and higher.
$30. Look at this man's hair. Are you the ringer from LA?
All those LA people.
So some guy's gonna go back to California with our homeboys test pressing a t-shirt for $30.
Somebody's gonna back us up.
We have $31.
And it ended up being two people, this young girl and this guy from California, and they kept on bidding against each other, right?
This is crazy, Renee. You might have to come fist fight this guy.
Oh my God. $75. $75.
Looks like the Californian's buckling.
It was a lot of money.
Is it just, no, 115, 115 going once.
We've hit a ceiling here, ladies and gentlemen.
115 going twice. Sold!
Is it okay if we hug you? Can we do that?
To this day, I have no idea if that person is still happy that she spent that money.
We didn't nearly make $5,000, but it was way better than any other.
Helped. The telethon gave us one more year, and we did what we could in that year.
I like the supper theater. That supper theater was a good idea.
By not paying the acts or paying sometimes the light bill, sometimes the landlord, sometimes the water bill, that they could afford to operate the way they did.
People who make things like that, you know, that make these really complicated social forms of art, are just not the kind of people that are good with money.
They only charged us $40 a month.
Ben used to live underneath my staircase.
You know, no one ever paid at the X-ray. That was the whole deal.
Vince always let everybody in for free.
I never paid to get in the X-ray. I never paid.
I never did either.
And, you know, and the place isn't here now, and I have no one to blame but myself.
The X-ray was a great place to freeload, and I probably still owe those guys for all those years of freeloading.
And Ben and Trace, or whoever was running the door, always paid the bands that played there, even if it was $2. They made a point of letting you know that it was appreciated.
I think I made more at the X-Ray than I do nowadays at certain other clubs.
It's rock and roll, man.
It just got crazier and crazier, and we owed a lot of money. And I remember we had that fateful meeting, and we sat and just said, when are we going to close down? We looked at the calendar, and we decided Elvis's birthday, August 14th.
The day the music died.
Or no, the death of Elvis. Well, what the hell am I talking about? It was the day that Elvis died, not the day that he was born. But in a sense, we were reborn as well by closing that dump.
The night the X-Ray closed was the saddest night of my life, I'll have to say.
It was a big media event. I mean, you know, the X-Ray closing was sort of the end of an era.
Make us feel it, baby! Go for it!
My hair look okay, Craig?
It looks beautiful.
Bring me back some more.
You know, it's our last night ever tonight.
Okay, yes, it's $10 a ticket. It's a catered affair.
You guys hungry?
Oh yeah. Do I see cucumbers?
Cucumber sandwiches right here.
That'd be so good.
I remember going to it, and it was, you know, just all the old faces were there, people who had played there over the years.
And in our own small ways, you can see from the sidewalk, we are all stars here at the X-Ray Cafe.
We want to dedicate our set to everyone that should be here that's not here, like all the bands that played here all the time that nobody ever heard of, and Crystal Bullet.
You can leave any time that you need to, but when you leave me, don't you leave me alone.
And I'd like to say to all you people who snuck by me while I was working door, I saw you.
It was sort of a bittersweet thing. I mean, people were upset that it was closing, and yet there was a sort of like celebration going on. And I just remember writing, you know, about the feeling that everyone had when the whole entire crowd broke into, I think it was American Pie, and you know, of course, the day the music died.
Long, long time ago, I can still remember how that music used to make me smile. I knew I had my chance, and I could make those people dance.
You know, it could be a cheesy thing, but at the same time, it was just so appropriate that, you know, for a writer, it was like a dream come true. If this great, legendary club closes, and, you know, 100 people packed in the room singing.
Bye, Miss American Pie. Throw my Chevy to the levee, but the levee was dry. And good old boys are drinking whiskey and rye, singing this will be the day that I die. This will be the day that I die.
You really couldn't ask for a better send-off for a really special place.
Wherever you are when you're that age rules, because that's where it's at.
I'm not a hippie, and I don't believe in unicorns and rainbows, but it was still a really magic thing.
It was like a clubhouse kind of, you know.
It's like the way little kids would have clubs.
Yeah, that's what it was like. Yeah, but it included adults and people of all ages.
I always define it, a club is something you actively join, participate, or you feel you're part of. You know, and the X-Ray was definitely a club.
Great place, phenomenal, beautiful, original. Never been there.
Probably there's about $5,000 still owing, and someday when these guys make it big, that'll be just a pittance to them. To me, it'll be $5,000.
That place just kind of morphed into a lot of other places after that, it seemed like.
I had a little clothing shop right across the street called The O, and I thought, well, I need more space. Maybe I can move over there. And a friend of mine, Rochelle, said, well, I'll open a cafe in the same space. And someone else said, well, we'll do a record shop. So we became a little punk rock mall. And we didn't intend to do shows at first.
Well, punk rock is what the kids will pay to go see.
Yeah. And we had a really good time, but it was a lot of work, and it just never had the charisma of the X-Ray. But I'm glad I did it. So it kept one more place for the kids to see music.
To me, it's always that doorway, those two doorways, that's the X-Ray, you know, I mean.
Yeah.
It's always the way it is. I don't even know what it is now.
You draw near to me. Let me hear you speak.
I am Charles Moore, Pastor Charles Moore,
And the name of the church is Liberation Street Church, and it gets its name from Liberation Ministries, which we've been down on the street for like 10 years serving chili on the street to the homeless, and then decided that the Lord Jesus wanted us to have a place down here where people could come and find out and learn about God's life. But when we came in here, there was only one light in here, and that was a strobe light right over there by that exit sign. You know what I'm saying? There was only one light, man. It was a strobe light. Yeah.
Now I book where bodies pan, which is right around the corner from the X-Ray. You know, I'm kind of the mayor of the street down here. Helpful John lives upstairs. Electric Steve still comes and checks in. The X-Ray lasted 4 years. It's pretty much like going to college. I think, you know, if Ben and I had to write a thesis, which I guess this kind of is for Ben as his thesis, I think we probably passed. You know, I think we got a good B+ out of the deal, solid B. We could have done some things better and different, but all in all, you know, I think it was a solid, important, kick-ass club, and Portland's a better place for it, you know.
I waited 6 years for someone else to make this movie, and in the end, I had to go make it myself. Of course, nobody does anything by themselves.
I have a friend who moved to Portland after the X-Ray had already closed. And she was saying one night that she regretted the fact that she missed the X-Ray, even though she has a lot of former X-Ray denizens as friends and acquaintances. I told her that she missed the building, but she got the people. And that's what it was really all about. It wasn't about the damn cafe itself, or as much as we love them, it wasn't about Ben and Trace per se. The X-Ray was the center of a great milieu. And that's a wrap!
What about an X-ray reunion?
I was reading through police reports one day when I came across one about a runaway. He ran away because he burned his house down, and he left his mother a note. Just ask for Brian. 7210115. Mom at
the end. Oh, one more thing. I hated that picture of Ken Rogers that they had on the wall. I thought it's very important to say that.